Why elderly Japanese are trying to end up in prison. With more than 25% of its population being 65 years of age or older, Japan has the oldest population in the world. The banking system and retail sector in Japan are already under pressure due to the aging population. Another surprising trend, however, has been emerging in recent years. A record number of elderly individuals in Japan are committing misdemeanor wrongdoings so they may spend the remainder of their days behind bars. By 2040, it is expected that number would have likely risen to more than 1/3. The combination of Japan's high life expectancy and low fertility rate has led to a demographic catastrophe. Over the past few decades, the average lifespan of the Japanese population has continuously grown. Concerns regarding the nation's workforce, prospective economic development, and the viability of the national pension and healthcare systems have been raised as a result of the aging and decrease of the working age population. The elderly is often treated with the highest respect in Japan. Several generations of families live under one roof in Japan frequently. This element is said to be one of the numerous causes for why old people in Japan live longer than any other group of people. They are the target of more complaints and arrests than any other population, and the senior corruption rate has quadrupled in the last 2 decades. 1 out of every 5 prisoners are an elderly person. Additionally, petty stealing is frequently the offense that lands older women in jail. Theft is by far the most frequently committed offense perpetrated by elderly offenders, especially theft. They typically take food from a store they frequent that is under 3,000 yen, $20, in value. The peculiar occurrence is a result of the challenges presented by the nation's aging population. The proportion of elderly Japanese people living alone climbed a lot between 1985 and 2015. The authorities observed that 40% of seniors who were apprehended for stealing acknowledged living alone and that 50% of them either didn't have relatives or only spoke to them sometimes. The state pension plan's situation gets worse as Japan's population ages. The redesigned system anticipated that payments made in equal shares by the employer and employee would be comparable to around 30% of earnings, down from 40% under the previous system. The issue of finding career options for those in the 60 to 65 age range, however, soon emerged. Prisons had already begun to become a little more attentive, if only unofficially, as the number of elderly detainees increased. Prisons lowered older convicts' responsibilities because they had difficulty keeping up with work. To augment the guards, social workers and caretakers were hired. Handrails are present in several jails. For these elderly people, a life in prison is preferable to the alternative. They could own a home. They may be parents. However, this does not imply that they have a location where they feel at home, according to Yumi Muranaka, chief warden of Iwakuni Women's Prison. If beneficiaries have no other source of income, the price of housing, food, and healthcare will put them in debt even before they pay for clothing or heating. It used to be customary for children to care for their parents, but in recent years, the lack of economic possibilities in the provinces has caused many younger people to leaving their parents to fend for themselves. The retirees believe that if they can't make ends meet on the state pension, the only way they won't be a burden is to put themselves into prison. They don't want to be a burden to their children. According to the elderly, recurrent wrongdoing is a method to get back into prison, where there are 3 square meals a day and no debts. The geriatric wrongdoing wave has been exacerbated by changes in Japanese households. The psychological rather than the financial effects are being stressed. Loneliness is the root of the issue, and one reason why they may have committed another offense and possible cell companionship. Keeping an offender in jail costs more than $20,000 a year, and older convicts specific care and medical requirements drive that expense much higher. Prison staff personnel are increasingly being asked to perform nursing care attendant jobs. The Japanese government has increased jail capacity and hired more female prison guards, albeit from a low base. The number of elderly women convicts is growing particularly quickly. It has also been noticed that the cost of treating prisoners' medical conditions is rapidly growing. But according to female prisoners, they feel a feeling of companionship inside the prison walls that they have never experienced outside. Toshio Takata, a 69-year-old elderly man, when interviewed, said, he breached the law in order to reside someplace without paying rent. When I became pension age, I soon ran out of money. So, I had the thought that maybe I could live for free if I was in jail, he said. I then rode my bicycle to the police station and informed the officer there that I had stolen the object. He received a 1-year sentence, but due to repeated offenses, he has spent the most of the last 10 years in prison. Detaining someone on purpose isn't only something that happens in Japan. People have been incarcerated on purpose in the United States, for instance, in order to receive health care, escape severe weather, or force themselves to kick substance habit. The size of Japan's issue worries the government. The government is making improvements to its social services and welfare systems in an effort to tackle the senior wrongdoings problem, but it doesn't seem like the tide of elderly offenders will be turning anytime soon.